Sure, you've heard of Orktober, but what about Gnomevember? Hey there, hobby friends. Welcome back to Caffeinated Miniatures. Recently, I've been working on a massive, and I mean massive, Orc Warhammer project. And while you'll see that soon, this video isn't about that. No, this video is about those small, single-session minis that change the pace and my mindset. The ones that are pure fun. And for me, that's Relic Blade. Because this 40k project is just so big, I've been grabbing a Relic Blade mini here and there and painting it up, sort of as a way of maintaining motivation and inspiration. And since it's now Gnomevember, I have no idea if that's actually a thing, but let's pretend it is. Anyways, I thought I'd paint up this Gnome Battlesmith and his trusty Ibex Steed. As with all my recent projects, I started with some underpainting. First hosing these guys down with dark blue. Then setting the direction of light with burnt sienna. I think of this step as a more intentional, directed zenithal highlight. This helps me to see where to place highlights as I paint, but also changes how the shadows appear in the end result. This noble steed seemed like a good place to start. I grabbed burnt orange and set out, diluting it to make it fairly transparent. This allows the underpainting to come through slightly, keeping the direction of light. The fur on this sculpt is really well sculpted and defined. So rather than reinventing the wheel, so to speak, I just kind of overbrushed the fur by gently dragging the side of my brush over it. This effectively paints the tips of the fur while keeping the recesses the underpainted color. To start developing the volumes and highlights, I began mixing in some ivory into the burnt orange. I continued to mix in more ivory to brighten the highlights, until the final round was nearly pure ivory. I kept the lower legs quite dark, while making the face much brighter, helping to draw the eye up to where the Battlesmith would eventually sit. According to Google, ibex have horns, not antlers. Regardless, they were up next. I slapped some Payne's Grey over the horns, actually covering all of it. To add some highlights to these horns, I mixed in a little of the ivory and added to the edges of the horn details. And with that, this noble steed was complete. Admittedly, I do enjoy the setting, minis, and universe of Warhammer, both 40k and Age of Sigmar. Although sometimes the game and the minis and therefore the projects just seems so serious. And as I said, I do like those universes and games, but periodically a change of pace is just kind of necessary. Enter Relic Blade, which doesn't suffer from those same hangups. The game truly is simplified, but not simple. Easy to pick up, but with loads of tactical depth. Really the perfect chill game night game. It's quick and fun, taking 30 to maybe 45 minutes, which means that you can play, re-rack, and play again in way less time than it takes to play some of those bigger games. And the minis, the minis. They are all super characterful and a blast to paint. Sean Sutter, the one-man genius behind the game, has obviously sculpted these minis with painting in mind, just the right amount of detail, leaving room for creative choices. And back to this armored up gnome. Because the vast majority of this little dude was armor, that's where I started. Mixing up a fairly dark combo of Payne's Grey and bright neutral grey, I began sketching out where the light would be, using quick, sketchy brushstrokes. If you've been following me for any amount of time, it's pretty obvious that I don't do any blending. It saves time, and ultimately, I like the sketchy look. On something as small as this dude, I would even say it's completely unnecessary. Over the next couple of layers, I added more bright neutral grey and covered progressively less area, being sure to hit the edges as this helps sell the metallic look. Finally, I hit a few of the very brightest points with pure bright neutral grey, and called all the armor done. Before getting to the beard and the cape, I hit some of the tiny details, adding some burnt orange and ivory to the inside of the gloves, some dark umber and grey to the saddle, and painting the horns on his helm to match the horns on the ibex, with Payne's grey and ivory. Like with his horns, I kind of wanted his beard to match his steed, so I began highlighting it with burnt orange. This time, however, I mixed in pale yellow to maintain more vibrancy. After a couple of increasingly bright layers, I hit a couple of places with pure pale yellow. For his cape, I wanted a hit of something different, so I grabbed Old Faithful Jade, being sure to leave the deepest recesses as the underpainted blue. After a couple of layers, mixing in some pale yellow, this fella was ready for some varnish. Now I have been on a mission to get more people playing this awesome game, and I've had some people suggest that the metal minis is what's kept them away. No, acrylic paint does not want to adhere to metal the same way that it does to plastic or even resin. However, I've never had a problem when I follow these steps. When I'm done painting, but before I add any grass tufts, I'll spray the mini down with 2 to 3 thin layers of gloss varnish. I start with gloss because it tends to be much stronger than matte. Once those layers have cured, I go back in with a couple thin layers of matte varnish. And I can't emphasize thin layers here enough. You can pretty easily build up this frosted kind of look if you get that matte varnish on too thick. Obviously, I'm using an airbrush here. However, you can absolutely do this with rattle cans, which I certainly did before I had an airbrush. And while I've heard of people varnishing with a brush, I've never personally done it for anything bigger than eyes or a jewel. So if you've got experience doing so, let me know in the comments down below. Regardless, I've never had any issues gaming with these metal minis when I follow this process. When I've been basing these Advocate crews, I've been trying to make them look like they're in an overgrown meadow. So I covered his base with grass, shrubs, and flowers, and he was all done. Well, there you have it, my first ever Gnomevember project. And yeah, let's make that a thing if it isn't already. What do you think? Are you a fan of quick palette cleansers? Let me know in the comments below. All of the minis showcased here were purchased by me at full retail price. I just love Relic Blade, and I want more people to fall for it like I have. So be sure to check it out in the description below. As always, if you made it this far, you are an absolute champion. If you liked the video, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe for more mediocre content. And thanks for watching. You are awesome, and I'll see you in the next one.